How many of you have ever used a rotary dial phone? Put your hand up if you've used it. Okay, quite a few. And that rotary dial phone was here a long time, wasn't it? It wasn't something that you had to get a new one every year. And then we had a dial phone, a touch-tone phone, and boy, you were pretty snazzy if you had a touch-tone phone. And before you knew it, all of a sudden there were phones in cars called bag phones, and then smartphones, and now you have to have a smartphone almost every year. It keeps changing. The fax machine has come and gone, and I heard the other day that there's a 3D printer that in addition to making machine parts, we even make a pizza for you. So it's amazing how fast the world has changed. So I'd like you to think about how old will you be in May of 2018? What's going to change by May of 2018? What's going to change in your family? What's going to change in Grand Rapids? What's going to change in our country, in our world, and in our church? And that's what we're here to talk about today, is what might change in our church. Listed in front of you is our vision team. This group was creative when it needed to be creative, analytical when it needed to be analytical, challenging when it needed to be challenging, and always inspiring. I am so impressed by the depth of the volunteer support for our church. So we decided to start at the top. What's our mission? This is, what do we do and for whom? Well, to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. That's based on the Great Commission. Next, we had to take a look at our purpose. And our purpose tells us, why do we do what we do? To fulfill the call of Christ to be spiritually alive in a city while embracing the world. I thought, well, what about a vision? Where do we want to go? Well, we decided we'd like to be the leading downtown church in addressing critical community needs. Well, along with those, we thought we really had to have some core values, and so we identified 5 different core values. The first one you can see is to be a vibrant, inclusive, loving, and welcoming community of faith. Our second one says we are a relevant, worshiping community that embraces tradition without being traditional in our worship of God. And we are an intergenerational community committed to spiritual growth and faith development. Some on our team said we're really a cradle-to-grave type of operation, and we said, well, we're really cradle to cradle to cradle, because look at the generations of families that have come through our church. We're fully engaged in a variety of missions of justice, mercy, and service, and we're invested by giving our time, talent, and treasure as we grow in our understanding of faithful stewardship. So those are the core values that we set to align with our mission, our vision, our values, our purpose. And we thought about what is it we should do more of, what should we do less of, and perhaps what should we not even do at all. And so we embarked on a strategic planning process. And our strategy development centered around what are we doing inside? What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? And then we also looked at what do we do, what happens surrounding our church, what's going on in our community. And so when you put those two things together, you come up with what we called our critical success factors. What are the things that we really feel are important that we have to achieve to be successful by 2018? And then we decided, well, we need to measure that annually, so we have to have objectives for every single year. And then those annual objectives would translate into action plans for not only our staff people, but committees as well, so that if you're serving on a committee, you would know what is it that I do that really helps contribute to the future of our church. So as we looked at this SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, the internal ones are strengths and weaknesses. And so let's start there, see if you agree. We said that we have excellence in worship, music, and the arts. We have gifted volunteers and staff. We have passionate local and global mission outreach. We have uncommon generosity, stewardship of time, talent, and treasure. And we have a rich historical presence and strong community connections. Pretty good strengths. But we said, well, rather than just look at the good things, where are our weaknesses? So we know that our membership is leveling off. It's down about 0.7%. Not too bad, but still level. We really have an inadequate use of rigorous evaluation systems to assess our church's programs and services. So we want to know, how are we making an impact in lives, both quantitatively and qualitatively. We also thought we ought to have, that we do have some limited worship opportunities. And so what is it that we can do for other alternatives there? We certainly have limitations of an old building. I mean, how many of you remember coming in here in the summertime when there was no air conditioning? That was quite a challenge. What a change. And the lack of the community's understanding of our church's role in the community. So we need to tell our story better. So then we thought about, well, what about the external population? Now, it's interesting to note that 25% of our population by 2018 is going to be 17 and under, whereas 55 and over, it's only 22%. So just some things to think about as we go forward. 60% of people in our area, not nationally, right here, are not actively involved in a church. So there's something that we can do. 66% of people think that the church focuses too much on money. And 66% also feel that religious people are too judgmental. So that's some external data. In addition to that, we looked at some opportunities. Better harnessing of modern technology to advantage all church programs and services. Dramatic growth in the number and variety of nearby residences. It wasn't that long ago that there wasn't much up on the hill except Butterworth Hospital. And my, how has that changed? The general growth in the number of unchurched people, I just indicated that 60% are not actively involved. The changing face of the congregation to better mirror the diversity of our community. That is an opportunity. And lastly, better embracing younger generations to become involved in our church. So, while those are opportunities, might there be some threats externally? The potential adverse effect of the economy on many segments of our community. Increased competition for charitable giving. Increased isolation and the interpersonal nature of society. All that social networking and people don't talk to each other. The overall decline in church membership and involvement. And then the last one, a risk of becoming irrelevant. Pretty scary, isn't it? So, taking that background information among other points of data, we decided what a great time to envision our future. And so, in order to determine what is it that we need to do to be successful, we came up with 6 critical success factors that by May of 2018, we really have to pay attention to these. And the first one is the spiritual enrichment. And you won't get this just by the name. I'll go into the definition in just a second. Evangelism and hospitality, worship, community outreach and impact, congregational care, and resource development. So, first with spiritual enrichment. That means, first of all, we have a pretty good church, don't we? We really do. But we want to enhance it further. Enhancing our church is a place where people encounter God, deepen their faith, and are challenged to transform their lives. Evangelism and hospitality means welcoming all people in an active manner and inviting them to discover God and to connect in life-changing ways. Our third one is worship itself, offering a variety of inspiring worship services to appeal to all segments of the community. The fourth one is community outreach and impact. We do a great job in that area, but boy, what else could we do? I had someone after the first service today that talked to me about some international opportunities he thinks that we should pursue. But expanding the way we share the love of Christ with people in Grand Rapids, the United States, and around the world through acts of justice, mercy, and service. Congregational care is not performed by the pastors, but performed by us. Expanding spiritual and emotional support by training pastoral caregivers from the congregation to provide visitation, prayer, education, and referrals and assistance. And the last one is the resource development, the funding that's required to advance whatever it is we say we want to be for our facilities, for our staff, for our volunteers to support the work of the church. So we are going to have 6 meetings, and we're going to have one virtual meeting so that my friend Dick Young, when he goes to Florida, will have an opportunity to collect electronically since he can't participate. But if you would like to, you can actually come tomorrow. Our first one is tomorrow, and then there's one a week after that, and there's several. There's 6 of them plus the electronic version. And we're going to be looking at some questions in these various groups. These are just some samplings. There's actually one question from each critical area. But how can we better involve students and young adults? What are your ideas in that regard? How might our church grow in membership and attendance? What other styles of worship might be worth exploring? What opportunities exist for additional outreach ministries? How do we encourage more laity to become involved in pastoral care? And then finally, what ideas do you have to improve our existing facilities? We don't have a master plan. What could we be? Where should we be? So the next steps from that, when we have all these meetings, is we're going to summarize the data. So the information we're going to be asking you, we've already identified, here's 6 critical success factors. Now we need to have strategic objectives under each one of those. So what can you dream, think about, test that would be important for our church to meet that? We'll then take that information, we'll create more formal strategic objectives. This is what we want to look like by 2018. We'll then develop the annual objectives for the preceding years. So we know we have to have a vision. Where are we going to go? And then what are we going to do this year, the next year, and the next year to help us get there? Then we'll share our plan with the Leadership Council and seek their approval or other suggestions they may have. And then staff members and committees will be able to create their goals to help them, again, align themselves with where they would like to see their work align with our plan. And then, of course, we'll review and revise it annually. This isn't a 10-year plan. We can't dream what's going to happen in 10 years because things are happening so quick nowadays, but we thought 3 years is an appropriate time. So we're inviting you to join us, to come down the road, come down the highway with us as we envision the future of what our church might look like. So thank you. We hope to see you tomorrow or later.